Hello, hello. Welcome to the Graphic Design Process Masterclass. I'm really excited to be with you guys today. So go ahead and grab your coffee, get your good chair, sit back and relax. I really hope you're going to learn something new and exciting today. So my name is Chanel Wheeler, and I'm really excited that you all are here with me today to learn about this graphic design process. I hope that you'll walk away today with something valuable and new under your belt. So let's get it started. I'm excited. All right. So I actually have a random question to ask you first. You guys know about Chopped, right? I'm pretty sure you've seen the show. Well, I really love this show. I always pretend like I'm on Chopped when I'm cooking, and I tell you, the clock beats me every single time. I'm one of those people that actually will watch Chopped while I'm eating dinner. I'll be yelling at the TV screen like, "No, you can't make risotto in 30 minutes." I'm really but if you don't know about Chopped, it's one of these shows where it's a competition between four chefs. They're competing against each other. They've got these three rounds that they have to go through: the appetizer, the entree, and the dessert round. And basically, they have a secret mystery basket where they've got these four random ingredients. And they've got to be able to cook and compete against each other to create some type of really great meal with these random ingredients. And the judges, they judge them based on, I believe it's taste, the usage of the basket ingredients, and presentation. So if you watch Chopped, you pretty much know how it happens. No matter what random ingredients are in that basket, no matter who the contestants are, they have to go through the appetizer, entree, and dessert round in that order to become the Chopped champion. So it's different people, it's the different basket each time, different judges every time, but the same process to win. And then, at the end, when Ted lifts up that lid and he says, "So-and-so, you've been chopped." So it happens every single time. As a matter of fact, it would probably be kind of weird if every episode they changed the order of the meals or something, or change the criteria for you to win each time, because there then wouldn't really be any consistent rules to guide the show. So the question is, shouldn't we be designing with some consistent rules too, so that we know how to win in our projects every time? I'll let you marinate on that for a minute. Just think about that one. But before we get into all this process stuff, I need to make sure that you guys know what graphic design actually is. And I'm sure you're probably saying to yourself, "I know what graphic design is," but just want to make sure because I think that's really important to start with. So what is graphic design? Well, I believe graphic design is simply visual problem solving for a particular audience. So it's visual problem solving. And we can do this by combining type, imagery, color, etc., to create these visual types of solutions. And we solve these problems using creativity, critical thinking, design principles, and tools like pencil, paper, and design software. So we're really just solving visual problems. Now, graphic design is visual communication because we're either trying to market something, we're trying to sell something, we're trying to persuade people to do something, or we want to inform. And so there are like endless visual problems to solve in this world because almost every industry, every type of business, every entity and institution is going to need to visually communicate something at some point. And so these are just some examples of just a few visual problems that you can solve: logo, signage, brochure, website graphics, you name it. These are the types of things that we can use to market, sell, persuade, and inform. But there's even a bigger picture here. Graphic design actually plays a really major role in the slice of a pie that we're going to call branding. And graphic design is really part of that visual identity that we create in the brand to visualize how that thing looks. So the logo, the colors, the fonts, the graphics, the marketing collateral, the graphic design guides that visual identity slice of the pie, but it's a slice of a bigger piece of that branding. And I believe that branding is perception. It's the perception of how an individual or organization is perceived by others and shaped by not just the visual look and feel, but all of these other aspects as well. The personality, the culture, the values, the experiencing, and the messaging. So the personality, what's the attitude? What's the personality of the company? Are they serious? Are they fun? Are they academic? What's the culture? What's the atmosphere internally in that office? What's the culture with the customers? Where are the values or the guiding principles that guide this business when they have to make decisions? What's the foundations of things that they believe in that they go by? What are their experiences? So if you interface with this organization, with this brand, how does it feel when you go into their storefront, when you go into their office? What's the experience at different events? How do you experience the people who work there? And how do the people who work there experience each other? And then, of course, the messaging. How does that organization talk about itself verbally? And how does it talk about itself and write about itself online in their marketing collateral? What is the way that they talk about themselves through messaging? So really, it's all these pieces together that shape the perception. And of course, depending on who's interfacing with the brand, the perception could be different based on who the person is. So you've got to work really, really hard to try to create a consistent perception for everyone by doing these things consistently and hopefully leading them in the direction that you want to be perceived in. So if anybody knows how valuable this piece of information is, I would say that's pretty much a sermon right there in itself. If we had to go home right now, that right there would be something powerful to keep in mind, because I think a lot of people are misinformed about what brand really is. But it's a perception, I believe. Can I get an amen on that? If you agree with me, just blink your eyes. I'm assuming that you're excited and that you agree. All right. So this is why I really love brand and design, because it's just something that I love to do. And it's something that I am very passionate about. And as a graphic designer of 18 years doing this and also teaching design as well, I love this because I can actually help others visualize their ideas. Like I can actually help someone take something that was a thought and actually create it into something tangible, which I think is pretty powerful as a creator. I can also help solve important business problems. So, something like trying to market or sell or inform or persuade, I'm helping do that through the collateral that I create and design. And I'm helping shape that brand perception as well. It's a great creative outlet, I think, because I'm able to use my creativity, use colors, graphics, images, typography to do all of this. And I believe it's granted me professional freedom in my career to work for all different types of organizations, work for myself, work with different types of clients and projects. And I'm actually celebrating this month because I'm actually 1 year into full entrepreneurship. And I believe that graphic design has been a vehicle to help me become my own boss. So can I get a whoop whoop or a yay or a holler? I appreciate that because it's pretty exciting, a big leap of faith, but graphic design helped me to get to that place. And then I actually teach design because I want to try to empower others to do all of the above. And thank you guys for those congratulations. I appreciate that. So I teach design because I want to empower others to do all the things that I was able to do. And that's why I'm so excited about it. So awesome designers like me across the nation, across the world, how do we do it? How do we create these really awesome designs? Well, we definitely utilize a lot of these attributes, that's for sure. So design principles, critical thinking, talent, skill, creativity, experience. This is how we go from request to final design, from point A to point B. But there is a piece that's missing that brings all of these things together and optimizes these traits. And I believe that is the process. The process is what we need to bring all of this together. And what is process? Well, it's a series of actions or steps taken in order to achieve a particular end. So I heard someone say last week, I think I was listening to some type of podcast, they said, take control of your process and take control of your trajectory. I thought that was a pretty powerful statement. So it's basically a way that you can take steps to take control of the process of design, of solving those visual problems. And not only do we want our actions and steps to be effective when we solve these visual problems, but we want it to be repeatable so that we can keep doing it over and over again, keep having that success. So I knew process was pretty important, but there were actually 3 things I did that really helped me to, really understand and appreciate the power of process. And I call these the 3 C's. These are the 3 C's that created the shift in my mind to help me really believe and know that this process worked. So the first C is that I got certified. In 2015, I studied really hard. I took that crazy project management exam and I obtained my project management certification to really understand what a proper process looks like and how to identify where I personally had some gaps when I was dealing with design projects and really just getting things done in life in general, just being able to manage things better. So this was the first eye opener for me, learning these actual steps that the Project Management Institute has been teaching for years and years over time to, I'm sure, millions of people across the world that have this global certification. But this was a great way for me to know that there were some key steps that successful project managers took in order to get the job done. So I learned that information and it really helped transform the way I looked at projects and what I was doing and what I wasn't doing. Then a few years later, I got challenged. And so I had already been practicing the project management methodologies at different jobs with my own clients. But it wasn't until I faced what I think was a gargantuan challenge that I realized the process really does work. So when I was at Terminus, and shout out to anyone on the call who is from Terminus or used to work there, that's a fast growing startup in Atlanta doing really, really well. But we had a company rebrand that we had to do. And we helped the company pivot in a significant way by rebranding or changing the perception of that company in only 3 months with just a small internal team. So really, really, really fast, really, really tight timeline. And I was grateful to have led that rebrand charge as the creative director and project manager of that project, of course, with the help of an extremely amazing team that I work with. And we were able to launch a refreshed brand from logo to marketing collateral to website to the internal swag, the employees, to the signage inside the building, outside the building in that very short time. It was crazy, as you can imagine. But I really believe if we didn't utilize a good process during that time, I don't know if we would have been able to have the success that we did in getting that project done the way that it turned out. So being challenged with a really big project and putting that process to the test really helped me to understand how important that was as well. And then last but not least, I had to get consistent. So I took that process that I implemented at Terminus and I realized, wow, this is actually repeatable. This is scalable. So if it was successful there, it should be able to be successful in other places and with other people. So I started to get more serious about consistently implementing this process that would yield results and help me and my clients feel comfortable and confident about solving these visual problems together. So basically, I didn't have to really guess anymore about what worked. I understand this is what actually works. So I want to ask you guys a quick question. Let's do like a quick poll. I just want to see, have you ever in your lifetime worked on a project where you felt like you were guessing in some type of way? So just fill out this poll for me really quickly. I just want to see what you're thinking. I'm talking about any type of project, big or small. Ever feel like you're just guessing? Just maybe just a little bit. All right, we got some honesty here. I appreciate that. I could definitely tell you I have guessed, and it's not a good feeling because you're like, I really hope this works out. Because if it doesn't, it's going to be a problem. So yeah, you feel the same way. You know how that feels. It doesn't feel good. And the less that we can guess, the more confident that we can be about moving forward. So let's see, what do we need to do then? And of course, I actually got 100% yeses. So that's actually pretty cool. So I want to introduce you guys to the graphic design process, or basically how not to guess your way through visual problem solving for a particular audience. So if you're a designer, if you're an aspiring designer, if you work with the designers, if you occasionally have to create a design for whatever you do for yourself or for work or for your business, this is what I believe is the optimal process for you to follow to get optimal results. And this is, of course, adaptable to each unique project. So depending on how simple or complex that project is, you can adjust this process. And not only am I going to walk you through this process, but I'm also going to give you insight to how this applies to the workplace if you work for someone at a job, and how this applies to the business if you're a freelancer or you have your own business. All right, so that sound good? I hope it does, because I'm ready to get into it. All right, let's go. So the first step of the design process is to identify. So we've got to just be able to identify what is the request, what is the problem that I'm trying to solve, or problems, and what do I need to make, what do I need to design or to solve these problems. So I'm just trying to identify the requests and get some high level specs of the project. So example, I need a logo, we need a sales sheet, we need a rebrand, it's a kind of bigger problem. I need a poster, I need an infographic. What is the actual request? And then we can kind of understand what's the overall kind of rough timeline, what's the overall scope. We're just trying to get a really high level overview of what is going on in this project. Maybe even a budget if that applies. So if you're in the workplace, what this is going to look like is you getting the initial request, maybe by your manager or by a colleague, if you're the designer, or if you're making the request, maybe you're giving it to your designer to work on. So it's basically kind of just that initial request, either through a conversation or through a project management software or through an email. And then if you're a business, this is also an initial conversation with the potential client. This is where you're going to figure out, is this client a good fit? Is this project a good fit for me? Right? And this is the initial conversation you're going to do to determine that. Because if it's not, there's really no need to continue with the rest of this process if you know that project isn't going to be a good fit. So we don't want to waste the client's time or ours. So the faster that we can get to understanding if we're able to fulfill this request or not, the faster that we can move forward with them with a yes, or help them move forward with someone else if that's a no. So I'm going to take you through a real life example of how this works. So let's pretend this is so let's identify, what is the request? We need a logo for our new taco truck business that we want to launch in 3 months. All right, well, this sounds like something I want to work on. So yeah, let's do it. Let's move forward. So identify. Now the next step, we need to be able to plan. We need to be able to gather these project requirements so that we can plan accordingly. So maybe we need to dive a little bit deeper into what exactly is the scope, what are the deliverables that I need to deliver in this design project? What's the actual timeline? Is there an actual date? Is there an event that we're working towards? So I can kind of reverse engineer and make sure that I get everything done in time, especially if there's some type of production or printing happening. Is there a budget? What are the roles and responsibilities? What are the overall objectives? We got to think about all this kind of stuff, right? And Kenya says, that's my type of client, tacos. Yeah, I agree. I love tacos too. I'm actually kind of hungry right now. So I think that's what I'm gonna do when I get off this masterclass, get something to eat. So we wanna plan in order to make sure that we can plan accordingly for this project. And how does that look? Well, this could be a quick and easy thing to do, or it could take a bit more time to plan out if you're working on a bigger, more complex project, like a rebrand or something like that, versus maybe something smaller like a social media graphic. So if you're in the workplace, you're going to go ahead and gather the requirements from the primary stakeholders of the project, whoever that may be. Maybe that's your manager, maybe that's someone else in a different department, but you're going to create a plan of action based on these prioritized requirements. And we got to make sure we say prioritize, right? Because sometimes when we talk to people, they want a whole bunch of things that maybe aren't necessary. So you're going to have to do your best to try to figure out what are the actual necessary requirements, what's the most important things that need to happen in order for this project to be successful. And then if you're in business, you should be creating a proposal or a quote for the client based on the requirements that you gathered. So if you have figured that, yes, this is a good fit for me, I want to work on this project, this client seems like a person that I want to work with, then go ahead and create that quote and that proposal. And if you do win that business, then you can go ahead and move forward with a plan of action based on that timeline, that scope, that budget. So that's kind of that point there of planning for the business. That's when you want to go ahead and inject that quote and that proposal. So again, let's see our real world example. So the client that I'm working with is called Amoris Tacos. They've got a timeline. They want to launch their business in 3 months, but I'm going to say that the timeline for the project is going to be 2, because they may want to use that logo to go ahead and print out some things or produce some stuff before that 3rd month comes along. So we want to kind of have some time to plan that out. So the scope is we're going to do a logo. The budget, we have a budget for that. Let's just say it's XXX. The decision makers are definitely the owners of the business. And the objective is really to just brand their food items in their truck with this new and cool logo and make them look like a reputable business, even though they're just getting started. So that's a great challenge to have. So we're going to plan that out, and we're going to plan accordingly so that we can tackle this project in time. So we've got to identify, we've got plan, and now what we need to do is discover. So we actually need to gather some insights from the client so that we can know how to make our design decisions based on this deeper discovery. So this is gathering insights from the client based on a deeper conversation. And so this is actually, maybe this is going to be a separate conversation from the beginning, the first one you had. This is going to be something that you schedule, but you're really going to talk to the decision makers and the primary stakeholders to really understand what the challenge is at hand, what the context of the project is, what is the purpose behind this project, so that you can really understand how you're going to move forward with design decisions like colors, fonts, imagery, all that good stuff. And of course, you're going to have knowledge of design principles here in order to do that. But it's important because you want your decisions to be influenced by the thought of what's the best way I can visually communicate this idea to help solve this person's problem. So I don't want to be picking colors and fonts and imagery based on what I like, guided by the conversation that I'm having with decision makers so that it actually matches what they need. So I'm going to have to ask meaningful questions in order to figure that out. So how does that look? Well, we know that the more larger or complex the problem, or the more in depth your discovery probably should be to make sure that you have a good understanding of the direction that you need to solve this problem in. And so if you're in the workplace, maybe you're going to have a deeper conversation with these stakeholders. Maybe you're going to have a meeting or even maybe a workshop. That's what we did at Determinist Rebrand. We actually did a brand workshop where we got a lot of different stakeholders in the room to talk about how we wanted to move forward. Or maybe it's just a one-on-one conversation if it's not a really big project. But we need to have this deeper conversation to be able to gather some insights so that we can create a good design strategy. And again, if you're in business, Maybe you should have some type of discovery session with your client to do the same thing. And from there, you're going to formulate a design strategy based on the insights that they gave you. Now, this is a really, really key piece because oftentimes I think designers get stuck because when we don't have enough information or context or purpose to make an informed decision, then we get into that guessing mode. And we don't want to actually guess. Now, sometimes you guess and you get it right because you have really great insight for yourself, but it's better to have make meaningful decisions based on this discovery. And so that's why asking meaningful questions is so, so important. So what does that look like? Well, these are some of the questions that I asked Amores Tacos to really grasp their vision and also to add my creative inputs as well into the pot. So things like, what's the meaning behind the name? What do you guys want to be known for? How will you stand out from the competition? What influences do you bring into your cuisine? And so these are some questions that I'm asking to help pull ideas out of their mind as well. Because sometimes a client may not really know what they want or need entirely. So it's really up to the designer to help you focus in on and trying to figure out the best way forward creatively for this design. So we're working together, having this conversation to really pull out the insights that are going to help us make these design decisions. So that's really, really important. So discovery, that's a really important step. Now, finally, we are finally getting to the point where we're actually going to design. Isn't that crazy? We just now got to this point. Now the step is execute. And this is actually a multi-part phase where the design magic actually happens. So now we're excited because now we're putting these ideas on pen and paper and on software and making this a reality. So we're going to do the design work and we're going to iterate. So as I said, this is a multi-part phase of the design process. And so there's 4 parts that I think go into this execution area. And the first one is brainstorming. So you're going to use the insights that you got from that discovery session to start writing down ideas, design ideas. So these could be words that could help you determine the imagery, the color, the typography, the tone. Maybe you'll list the attributes of what you think the logo would look like or what that design would look like. But this is just really a quick way for you to organize your thoughts, to start writing things down without actually committing to any type of design first. You're just kind of doing a brain dump to get all your ideas out on paper. Then you're going to do sketches. So you're going to quickly get your ideas out on paper. It doesn't have to be anything perfect or refined. You're just trying to get your ideas out before you get to the software. And this is a way that you can mitigate your risk in the project because you don't want to get too deep into the weeds in the software and be trying to do a lot over there. If you can eliminate some ideas or things that don't work on paper, then you can move faster once you get to that software. So do some sketches so that you can get your ideas out before you move on to the software. Then we have wireframes. So this is how you can map out a low fidelity or low detail rendering, especially if you're doing some type of interactive design, like if you were doing a website or a mobile app. So anything that's going to be interactive, it's going to have multiple steps for someone to click on or tap on with their finger. We want to be able to map this out through wireframes first so that we can figure out the interactivity, where things are going to go, call to actions, all that kind of stuff. It's a lot easier to make changes here before we actually start coding and designing in real time. Because if you get to the actual website, built it out, and then you have to make a major change, we already know that's going to be a big pain. That's going to be a big headache. It's going to probably increase your timeline and maybe even potential costs. So we don't want that to happen. So we want to try to mitigate that as much as possible by doing the wireframes first. All right. And then we finally get to the concepts and the mock-ups. So this is the high fidelity concept that we're going to make, or the high detail concept, where we're actually going to finally put our ideas into some type of professional software like Adobe Creative Suite or Affinity Designer. And we can even make mock-ups to show the real life application of how this design is going to work. So you may or may not go through all of these kind of sub-steps within the execute process phase of the process to lead to your initial concepts. It really just depends on the complexity and timeline of each project, and also depending on the collaboration and relationship with the client or your boss or manager or whoever it is. You may or may not even share all of these parts of the phase with them. So maybe the brainstorming and the sketching is just for you, but when you finally show those initial concepts to the client or your boss, you're showing them those refined, like high fidelity concepts, because that's what they understand more than those sketches and brainstorming. It just really depends on who you're working with and how they understand the design process. And then of course, we know that design is an iterative process. So once you come up with your initial concepts, it is very likely that you're going to have to make some type of changes, as we know. So you're going to iterate on the design concepts to narrow them down to the final design or designs based on feedback, based on changes, based on edits between you and the requester or the stakeholders. So you're going to go from version 1 to version 3. Maybe it's even version 8, but hopefully you hadn't had to do all that. That's a little bit too many revisions, but hopefully you can kind of reduce that down. And there should be some kind of progression or improvement to get to the desired end goal, right? So you need to be able to also update the content, or maybe there's some final copy that you have to kind of change as you're making these iterations, but you should be working towards some type of final design that the client loves. And we're really hoping that it doesn't take too many iterations to get to that end process. But if it does, we need to go back to that discovery and really make sure that we understand what problem we're trying to solve. Because sometimes it's easy to get off track, right? And we also have to know what type of agreements we have with our clients to make sure that they understand how many iterations or versions are included with the contract that they signed with the designer. That's also really important, but that's a whole nother masterclass. All right, so with the execute process, I would say that the steps for executing are pretty similar. The designer is going to present those initial concepts to the requester, and they're going to communicate and iterate with the client or with their manager or their team to get to that desired end. So they're going to keep on communication. They should be getting closer and closer to that really, really great design. And so let me show you what that looks like with our Amores Tacos project. So in the brainstorming phase, I jotted down some words from the discovery that I got that were really helpful. So they're doing some Southern and Latin fusion. They're mixing two different types of cuisines together, because one of the owners lives in Atlanta and the other one worked in Miami. So they're kind of fusing these two things together to make a really unique type of cuisine. They want it to be sultry, sexy. They want to evoke desire. They want to have a bold personality. They want to be innovative, unique. They want to show that these tacos are dripping with flavor. They want to have bright colors. So me jotting this down is giving me ideas, helping me to make decisions about color and imagery and typography, what type of things, visual elements match these words and help me to really bring those words to life. So then these are some of the sketches that I drew. Yes, I know they're not really that great at sketches, but that's okay. So I'm just getting my ideas out on paper to help guide me when I get to the software. So just doing some really little crazy little sketches, little rough things. They really had this idea that they wanted the lips with the dripping sauce to be part of that imagery. So I kind of played around with that. And then here are the initial concepts that we started with. So they liked this, but they wanted to go a little bit further. They wanted to be a little bit more, I guess, bold and out there. So we did another round. And these are 3 more iterations that we came up with. And you can probably take a guess to know which one was the final design, but I'll show you guys that in just a minute. So these were some iterations that we had once we had more conversations to try to get to that desired end. And then finally, we are going to finalize. We're going to wrap this design up. We're going to tie a bow around it, and we're going to be able to deliver that asset for production or usage. So this is the fun part, because now we are almost there. We are pretty much done. So if you're in the workplace, the designer is going to save or export that design file or files in the proper format and deliver that to the requester, maybe send it to print if that's what's necessary, and go ahead and archive those files. And then if you're in the business, freelancing for yourself, you have clients, you're going to do the same thing. And of course, you're going to send that final invoice, because now you are complete with that project. So we're wrapping it all up, putting it all together. And this was the winner for Amores Tacos. It actually is a real business in Atlanta. So if you are in Atlanta, check this out. Google them online, go to their social media page and check out their food. It's actually really, really good. But this is the Amores Taco brand that we landed on. It kind of combines the sultry and the dripping of the sauce, but also that taco imagery. So it's pretty straightforward to know what this is. We've also put it on these mock-ups so that we can see how it looks in real time. And then we actually see the final product here on that nicely branded cutting board there. So it's kind of cool to see your idea go from a request to an actual real design. And we can do this the same way every time with this repeatable process. So just as an overview, we want to identify the request. We want to plan, so we want to gather all the requirements first and then create a plan of action. We want to do some discovery so that we can gain some insights, do some critical thinking to really make a strategy for our design and make sure that the decisions that we make for the design are based on our conversation with that client and what that user really, really needs to market, sell, inform, or persuade. Then of course, we're going to design, we're going to get into it and actually brainstorm, sketch, wireframe, and make those concepts. And then of course, we're going to produce and deploy the assets as we finalize the design. Now, of course, there are various, process scenarios that you may have because the durations of these phases may vary per project, because depending on the project you have, it could be very complex or could be very simple. So even though you're going to go through all these steps every time, it could be very fast to get through all of these steps, or it could take a little bit longer based on the project. So maybe identify, plan, and discover is actually a back-to-back very quick thing that you get through, and designing is going to be the longest part of the project. But maybe if you're doing something really, really big, you're going to have to spend a lot more time on planning and discovery to really uncover all those requirements and make sure you really understand the purpose and the mission behind the project. So it really just depends on who you're working with and what you're working on, how this process may change and adapt to your situation. But honestly, what process is going to do for you, the power of process is that it's going to keep you organized and on track. You're going to be able to be consistent and use a repeatable way to get from point A to point B. You're going to have a roadmap for making really good design decisions. You're going to be able to have confidence in both yourself, and the client's going to be able to have confidence in you as well, to know that this designer is actually using a framework that's going to get me a good result. And you may think, well, doing all these steps, that's going to compress my creativity. But no, the framework actually optimizes your creativity, because now you have a great way to enhance that, your creativity, your skill and experience, in a way that's very systematic, but allows you to still use those creative skills that you have. And of course, you're going to be able to increase your value in the workplace or in your business by having a really good process. And let's talk about value in the workplace or in business. So we already know there's lots of value in knowing how to design well. That's the execute process. But there's also a really tremendous value in planning and discovery. So in the workplace, if you can actually be a person who can keep a project or many projects organized at work, you can manage the process. That's a really great asset to have and to say that you can do. And if you can go a step further and actually create effective strategies through asking meaningful questions, discovery, you will be deemed as that critical thinker who knows that they need to have you in the room when leaders are making these critical decisions. So you're going to be that person that they look to have a strategy because they know that you think with the process. And in business, being able to add that organizational and project management value is going to make you stand out and be more attractive to prospective clients. And then adding that discovery and that critical thinking to your skill set, which leads to strategy, can also help you increase your rates exponentially. Yes, you can increase your rates exponentially if you are in fact able to be good at pulling together these insights and bringing strategy to the table for your clients. Because if you are a critical thinker and you can think of things to help them solve their problems faster, that's really valuable. And depending on who the client is, they will value it enough to pay more for that. So instead of just being paid for your tactical design skills, being able to put together words and imagery and through software, you can actually also get paid for your thinking as well, which I think is just as important or not more important than executing the design. So having that plan and discovery portion in that process is a value you add to yourself if you really know how to capitalize on it and you really improve yourself in those areas, in addition to being a great designer as well. So ladies and gentlemen, that is the power of process. But wait, there's a little bit more. If you are feeling ambitious right now, if you feel convicted and you feel like you want to take a deeper dive into this process to learn this so that you can utilize this over and over again at work or in your own projects, if you want to put what you learned today to use in real time and really practice that, if you want to be more confident with how you create your project from start to finish, then I want you to take a pact with me. And that is called Project Pact. This is where we're going to learn how to execute the design process and learn it from start to finish. So we're going to go more in depth about this whole process and what the steps are to get to start to finish. We're actually going to create a minimum viable project or MVP so that you can put that project in your portfolio at the end if you choose to do so. We're going to be able to practice our communication with a live discovery session. So we're actually going to talk to a client and practice these discovery questions. You're going to get live training, daily email prompts, and group support from other users and learners that are on the class with you as well. And again, the outcomes of this is that you're going to be able to design with greater clarity, strategy, and confidence. You're going to be able to improve your portfolio, or even if you don't have a portfolio, you can start one and put this project in there. You're going to be able to get some honest feedback and critique, and you can practice communicating your questions and ideas to others. And we're going to work on a cool logo project throughout this process. As we learn it, we're going to also execute this logo project so that you can put that in your portfolio. And in order to do this, you're going to have a mindset shift, right? Because you're going to have to think differently than you did before, if before your mindset was maybe this. Maybe you do sometimes guess your way through solving visual problems, but you don't want to really feel like that anymore. Maybe you feel like you're just an order taker. When you do design projects, you're just taking orders and doing whatever the client says versus actually adding your own input and feeling like it's a collaboration. Maybe you don't consistently yield the results that you want in your designs, or maybe you're waiting for opportunities to come to you instead of creating your own opportunities. So the new way I want you to think about it is I want you to be able to feel like, yes, I can execute a design project from start to finish and be confident doing so. I feel like I am a valued member of a team and my thoughts are valued. I'm able to collaborate better. I'm proud of the work that I do, and I'm attracting more people to work with me. And I attract people who also value process and also value design. So I don't have to convince them that this is the right way to do things. They already understand that. So this is the mindset shift that I also want to instill, because I think it's really important to be able to think correctly about how you can attract better clients, or how you can grow in your workplace if you work at a job to be able to be a more valuable asset in doing design. So if you want to join me for Project Pact, go ahead and check out bit.ly/make the pact right now. And I'm actually going to offer between now and Friday only $100 off this price. So if you actually use the promo code make the pact, then you can get $100 off of this initial price. So this is going to be a great and exciting initiative because I think we're going to really be able to learn and level up in that design process and really be able to implement this moving forward in the future. And remember, this is only going to work if you do. So if you got to be committed to get through this pact, to get through this process, and to really challenge yourself to be able to learn these things so that you can create a good outcome. And I actually want to challenge all of you guys who do decide to take the pact, that at the very least, that you actually make back what you invested on this in this class on your next project quote. So if you're, say, I don't know, only charging $50 for a project right now, which I hope you're not, but maybe you are, then I want you to take all the skills and lessons that you've learned from Project Pact and that you've implemented as well to not only level up yourself first and level up your service to the client and the way that you provide a service to them, but also then level up your own pricing so that the value of what you're doing is aligned with the actual price. So I want you to actually add the value and skill to yourself first, because that's very important before you raise the price, of course. And then I want you to be able to make your investment back very, very quickly. So I'm excited about the Project Pact. And if you want to come along, go ahead and go to bit.ly/make the pact and start with me, because we're going to get started very soon, next Saturday, October the 9th. All right. So my charge to you at the very least is to take something you've learned today and apply it to the process if you're a designer. If you are a manager of designers, create a space for empathy for your design team, for more empathy, if you manage some designers or you work with designers, so that you can understand what they have to do in order to get these visual solutions. And if you see any gaps in any way in the way that you work or the way that you're solving visual problems, maybe you can implement something that you learned today to really kind of just make that better and level up the way that you do work. So make the commitment to become consistently better at the way you're visually communicating through marketing, selling, persuading, or informing through the process. And empower yourself with this process, of course, so that you don't get chopped like Ted does at the end of that episode of Chopped. And of course, I know that's corny, but of course I had to add that in there somewhere because just love that show. So I want to thank you guys for being here with me. You guys were awesome. I hope that you join me in Project Pact, and I hope that you guys have an awesome rest of the day. Appreciate you being here. Take care. I'll see you soon.